Out of nowhere, a furious snake coiled tightly around Luna, the mama Labrador, setting off a chain of events no one could have seen coming. What happened next was truly unbelievable. A sudden, sharp whimper cut through the quiet morning. It was such a strange, urgent sound that Jake, the neighborhood garbage collector, froze mid-motion, his hand still on the trash bin. The noise didn't fit with the usual hum of the street. Kids leaving for school, sprinklers clicking on, dogs barking in play. This cry had fear in it, a cry that begged someone to listen. Jake's chest tightened as he tried to figure out where it came from. The sound drifted from behind the wooden fence at 42 Maple Street, a place that rarely stirred any attention. But something was wrong today. He let the bin drop with a loud thud and stepped closer, his thoughts racing. What could scare an animal like that? He pictured an injury, maybe a trap. But whatever it was, he had a bad feeling it might be worse. He moved toward the gate, caught between his usual routine and the sense that he couldn't just walk away. Most mornings he'd already be heading to the next house by now, just doing his job. But that cry stuck with him. It pulled harder than his schedule ever could. He looked around quickly, no one else in sight, then reached for the gate with a shaky hand and pushed it open. He stepped quietly into the yard, and what he saw made his breath catch. In the middle of the grass, a large black lab lay stiff with fear, her eyes wide and fixed on something terrifying. Wrapped around her was a massive snake, its thick, scaly body tightening with slow force. Luna whimpered again, but it was weaker this time, more like a whisper of pain. Jake stood frozen. The snake was huge, probably a 6-foot python, and had no business being anywhere near a backyard like this. It must have escaped from someone nearby, but now it was wrapped around this poor dog like it belonged there. Luna, as Jake would later learn her name, lay still under the snake's weight, her eyes full of panic and her body trembling. The seconds felt long and heavy. Jake knew he couldn't just stand there. Every instinct told him to run or call someone else, but his feet didn't move. Instead, something inside him clicked. He couldn't pretend this wasn't happening. Not now. With shaking fingers, he pulled out his phone and started to call for help, his eyes locked on the tangled scene in front of him. This wasn't just a quiet moment gone wrong. It had become something far more serious. And now, he was part of it. As Jake's call connected, he spoke in a tense whisper, keeping his voice low but steady. "There's a huge snake wrapped around a dog. I need help right now," he said, eyes locked on the frightening scene in front of him. He quickly gave the address, his words barely audible over the distant barking of other neighborhood dogs, still unaware of what was happening at 42 Maple Street. The dispatcher assured him that help was on the way and urged him to stay back and remain safe until professionals arrived. With the call made, the initial shock started to shift into something heavier. Jake felt it deep in his chest. He couldn't just watch this unfold. He had to do something, but every step, every thought seemed risky. The snake's thick coils held Luna tightly, and she barely moved now. Her breathing was shallow, each breath a quiet struggle under the crushing weight. The python's shimmering scales caught the sunlight, a strange, eerie contrast to the calm summer morning. Even though the operator had warned him to stay back, Jake slowly crept closer. He had to get a better sense of the situation. Dry leaves crackled underfoot, sounding louder than they should. His heart pounded as he watched the snake shift slightly, its grip pulling tighter in one slow, deliberate motion. Luna's eyes met his, wide with fear, pleading silently in a way that hit Jake right in the gut. His mind raced. Maybe there was something in the shed at the back of the yard, a stick, a shovel, anything he could use to help without getting too close. As he quickly scanned the space, something else caught his eye, and it made his blood run cold. Under a nearby bush, barely visible in the shade, 3 tiny black Labrador puppies huddled close together. Their soft whimpers were easy to miss, but now that Jake had seen them, he couldn't look away. These were Luna's pups. There was no doubt, and now their safety was on the line too. Seeing the puppies added a whole new weight to the moment. Jake realized that waiting quietly wasn't enough. If the snake moved again, it could be fatal. not just for Luna, but for her babies too. The pups stared at their mother, wide-eyed and shaking, their tiny bodies pressed close together. Jake took a deep breath and stepped back just a little, eyes sweeping the yard for anything he could use. Then he spotted it, a garden hose neatly coiled near the side of the house. It wasn't much, but it might work. If he could spray the snake, maybe the sudden burst of water would make it loosen its grip, even just for a second. Carefully, Jake moved toward the hose, every step measured and slow so he wouldn't startle the snake more than it already was. He unhooked it from the tap and gently pulled it closer to where Luna lay, still trapped in the python's tightening grip. His hand shook as he turned the nozzle, setting it to a strong spray, trying to steady himself for what came next. He gave one last glance toward the quiet street outside the fence, almost as if checking to see if anyone might stop him or witness what he was about to do. Then, without another pause, he aimed the hose at the snake. His finger pressed down on the trigger, the hose twitching in his grasp as a cold, powerful stream shot out. He knew there was no going back now. This had to work. Luna's life and the safety of her pups depended on it. The blast of cold water hit the snake hard, and the reaction was immediate. The python recoiled with a sudden jerk, the stream clearly catching it off guard. Luna whimpered as her body flinched, the surprise movement jarring her already tense muscles. The snake lifted its head slightly, swaying in confusion as the water kept coming. Jake's heart pounded as he kept the hose steady, hoping the spray would be enough to break the snake's grip. For a second, it looked like it might be working. The coils around Luna seemed to loosen just a bit, and Jake felt a flicker of hope. But the relief was short-lived. The snake shifted, then tightened again, harder this time. Its instincts kicked in, and it pulled its muscular body tighter around Luna. She let out a sharper cry, her eyes squeezing shut as the pressure grew worse. Jake's stomach sank. Maybe he'd just made things worse. He stood frozen for a moment, the hose still in his hand. Luna was fighting to breathe, and Jake felt helpless watching her struggle. He wanted to do more, but fear gripped him. This was no longer just about bravery. He was dealing with something wild and dangerous, and he was in over his head. Letting the hose drop, Jake reached for his phone once more, his fingers shaking. He couldn't rely on quick fixes now. This needed professional help. He called 911 again, his voice tight but clear. "The snake is squeezing tighter. We need animal control here right now. It's getting worse," he said, his eyes glued to the dog lying helpless on the ground. The voice on the other end was calm, even soothing, a strange contrast to the chaos in front of him. "Help is already on the way, sir. Please stay safe. Can you confirm the dog is still alive?" "Yes, she's still alive, but she's in a lot of pain. Please hurry," Jake said, his voice caught somewhere between desperation and determination. He ended the call and stepped back, eyes locked on Luna. She looked completely drained, barely holding on. The snake's thick coils were like a cruel vice, each one pressing harder than the last. Then, faint but growing fast, the sound of sirens reached his ears. Help was finally coming. But with every pulsing beat of those sirens, the snake seemed to tighten even more. It might have sensed the vibrations in the ground or the growing tension in the air. Luna let out a soft, broken moan, so faint, yet full of pain. Her body stiffened again, straining under the crushing force. Jake's heart ached. Everything he had done felt so small now, like a drop in a rising tide. All he could do was hope that help would make it in time, to save Luna and to protect the helpless puppies still tucked beneath the bush, watching and waiting. The sirens grew louder, then stopped with a screech of brakes just outside. Jake turned toward the sound as emergency vehicles arrived at 42 Maple Street. His heart thudded harder as he saw the responders leap into action, unloading equipment with speed and purpose. His call had worked. They were here. The gate opened and an animal control officer stepped in first, her face focused and calm under pressure. A paramedic followed close behind. They came for different reasons, but now they had one shared goal: save Luna. The officer caught Jake's eye and gave him a clear signal to stay back. "We've got this, sir. Please stay where it's safe," she said firmly, already scanning the scene. Jake gave a silent nod and backed away, though he couldn't take his eyes off Luna. The officer moved slowly toward the dog and the snake, her hand steady as she carried a long pole with a loop at the end, made for exactly this kind of job. "Hang in there, sweet girl," she said gently to Luna, her voice calm and warm, even as the dog's body trembled from strain. Meanwhile, her teammate opened a transport box nearby, ready to contain the snake once it was freed. The paramedic knelt close, medical bag open, and ready for action the second Luna was clear. The officer with the pole eased it toward the snake's head, careful not to spook it. But the moment the loop got close, the snake reacted, pulling tighter again. Its muscles tensed, its whole body turning stiff as a log. Luna gave a soft gasp, barely a sound, but enough to stop Jake's breath. "Easy now. Let's not make this harder," the officer said in a calm but firm voice, focused completely on the snake. Then, in one quick, practiced motion, she slipped the loop over the python's head and secured it tight. The snake thrashed in protest, its coils writhing with surprising speed, but she held firm. "Got it!" she called out, her voice laced with relief. Her partner rushed over to help. Together, they began easing the snake off Luna's limp body. It resisted, its tail lashing out in frustration, but the officers worked quickly, loosening the last coils. As the final loop released, Luna collapsed to the grass. Her breathing was shallow, her body completely spent. The paramedic rushed in without hesitation, gently touching Luna's side and starting to check her vitals. "Hang in there, Luna," the paramedic said softly, pressing a cloth to a scrape on her side where the snake's rough scales had rubbed her raw. "You're not alone now. Help's here." Coil by coil, the pressure on Luna's ribs eased as the snake was finally pulled away. But instead of relief, Luna's condition seemed to dip. Her breaths were slow and shallow, each one a clear struggle. Her chest rose and fell in uneven patterns, her strength clearly fading. The paramedic's brow furrowed as she watched closely. "She's slipping into shock. We've got to act fast." She turned back to her kit, pulling out supplies to stabilize Luna before they could move her safely. Jake stood nearby, a knot tightening in his chest. The snake had been removed, yes, but Luna wasn't safe yet. He watched as she shivered, a soft whimper escaping her lips. The worst might be over, but her fight was far from finished. Once the snake was fully unwrapped and sealed in the container, the tension shifted, but not entirely. Luna lay weak and trembling, her body reacting to the trauma. As the paramedic and animal control team gently lifted her onto a stretcher, something shifted in Luna. Suddenly, her eyes snapped open. Despite her exhaustion, a spark lit behind them, raw, maternal instinct kicking in. She spotted her puppies at the edge of the yard, still huddled under the bush, and with a shaky growl, she pushed herself up. "Whoa, Luna, easy," one of the officers murmured as Luna stumbled forward, clearly straining. But she moved with purpose, dragging herself between the responders and her pups. Everyone froze for a second, surprised by the sudden burst of strength. Luna's weak frame took on a protective stance, and her gaze hardened. Her ears pinned back, and without warning, she lunged toward the snake's container. Her teeth clamped down on the python's tail, still thrashing inside. "Get her back!" the paramedic shouted, already running to help. The officers jumped in, trying to pull her away. The snake, though contained, flailed in panic as Luna held tight, driven by something deeper than pain. Pure protection. She refused to let go until they gently pried her mouth open and eased her back. Her strength gone, Luna collapsed onto the stretcher, her legs folding under her. Her breathing was ragged now, her body finally giving in. The paramedic moved fast, placing an oxygen mask over Luna's nose and checking her pulse. Her hands moved with experience, but her voice betrayed the weight of the moment. "She gave everything she had," she muttered quietly. "We've got to get her to the vet. Now." As they secured Luna for transport, Jake stood back, a wave of admiration mixed with fear washing over him. Luna had risked everything, not just to survive, but to protect. Even now, her tired eyes flicked toward the bush, still watching her puppies. The sun had dropped lower, casting long shadows across the yard. A cool breeze rustled the leaves, brushing gently over the quiet scene. The worst of the day might have passed, but the night ahead felt heavy with unknowns. Jake slowly made his way toward the puppies, crouching low so he wouldn't startle them. His voice was soft but steady. "It's okay now," he said gently, his words meant to comfort. "We'll take care of your mom. She's tough." As the emergency team carefully lifted Luna into the van, her breathing steadier but still weak, Jake stood quietly nearby. The image of her turning back to defend her puppies stuck with him. Even on the edge of collapse, she hadn't given up. That kind of courage stayed with you. The van doors shut with a quiet thump, and the vehicle rolled down the street, its lights flashing in the dimming evening. Luna was gone now, heading into the care of skilled hands. Jake watched until the van disappeared, his heart quietly hoping for the best, for a mother who had given everything to protect her little ones. As the tail lights faded, silence settled over 42 Maple Street. It felt heavy, like the air itself had changed. Jake stood there for a moment, just taking it all in. The yard looked different now, coiled hoses on the ground, scuffed patches of grass, and the snake's container still sealed tight nearby. The calm after the storm was almost too quiet. His eyes returned to the puppies, still curled up together under the bush, their tiny bodies shaking slightly. They were too young to understand what had just happened. Jake knelt beside them again, letting them sniff his hand. Slowly, they relaxed, leaning into his touch as he gently stroked their soft fur. A car pulled up then, its tires crunching the gravel. Jake stood as Mrs. Allison stepped out, her face pale with worry. A neighbor had called her, and she'd come as fast as she could. "Jake, what happened? Is Luna—" Her voice cracked, unable to finish the question. Her eyes were already filling with tears. Jake stepped closer, offering a calm, reassuring smile. "She's at the vet now," he said. "She fought hard, and help got here in time. They're doing everything they can." Mrs. Allison nodded slowly, taking in the scene. Her eyes moved to the mess in the yard, the traces of what had taken place. "And the puppies?" she asked, her voice trembling. "They're safe," Jake said, motioning to the little group by the bush. "And strong, just like their mom." Mrs. Allison dropped to her knees beside them, her touch gentle but full of love. The puppies pressed close to her as if they already knew her. A hint of a smile tugged at her lips, a flicker of relief even in the middle of so much worry. "I don't even know what to say," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "If you hadn't been here—" Jake shook his head, laying a hand on her shoulder. "That's just what neighbors do," he said simply. "We watch out for each other." Together, they gathered the puppies and brought them inside, settling them into a warm, quiet corner of the living room. Jake helped set out blankets and made sure they were comfortable. But his thoughts never drifted far from Luna. At the door, before heading out, he turned back. Mrs. Allison was sitting near the puppies now, eyes still full of concern, but also filled with care. "I'll check in later," Jake said. "And if you hear anything about Luna, please let me know right away." "Of course, Jake, and thank you again. You've really been a hero today," Mrs. Allison said, her voice full of sincerity. Jake gave her a quiet nod, feeling the weight of her words. It wasn't about being a hero, it was about being there when someone needed help. As he walked back toward his truck, parked a few houses down, a mix of tiredness and quiet pride settled over him. The day had thrown him into something completely unexpected, but it had also brought out a deeper connection to Luna, her puppies, and this little corner of the neighborhood. The familiar hum of the street began to return, the sound of sprinklers ticking on, the wind brushing gently through the trees. The worst had passed, and now the calm was slowly returning. The sun dipped lower, casting a golden light across the houses, soft and warm. It felt like a quiet ending to a day that had been anything but. Jake paused by his truck and looked back one last time. The rush of the emergency, the fear, the noise, it had all faded. What remained was a simple truth. One brave dog had fought with everything she had, and a group of people had rallied around her. Luna had done what any mother would, and Jake had just done what felt right. Through the front window he saw Mrs. Allison inside, sitting beside the puppies. They were finally calm, curled close to her. The picture said it all, a tired but watchful guardian, and the little lives she was now holding close. Jake realized then how moments like this could connect people in ways you don't see coming, how a shared crisis can turn strangers into something closer. She'd called him a hero, but to Jake, the real hero was Luna. He hoped with all his heart she'd make it through. Those puppies still needed her. And honestly, so did the neighborhood. He climbed into his truck, the engine turning over with a low rumble. As he pulled away, his thoughts lingered on the courage he'd seen that day, from Luna's fierce loyalty to Mrs. Allison's strength to the quiet teamwork of people stepping up when it mattered most. It wasn't something he'd forget. He glanced at the houses passing by, each one quiet again, but different now. People here would remember this day. It would be something neighbors talked about, something that made them just a little closer. Jake felt that shift inside himself too, a stronger bond with this street, this place. The sun finally slipped below the horizon, and the light faded from the sky. In its place came a calm sense of resilience. What had happened would stay with them, not as a moment of fear, but as a moment of unity. Luna's story reminds us just how powerful that bond can be. Her courage didn't just save her life, it kept her puppies safe and brought a whole neighborhood closer together. It's proof that even in the scariest moments, love and instinct can carry us through. Now we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed or been part of a moment like this, where someone stepped up or an animal showed incredible strength or loyalty? Tell us in the comments below. And if Luna's story moved you, give this video a like, subscribe for more real-life stories like this one, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Let's keep celebrating the everyday heroes, whether they walk on 2 legs or 4.